Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today we're going to interview retired CIA officer Mike Croissant. He has worked in counterterrorism for years, fighting major terrorist groups like Al Qaeda, ISIS, and the Taliban, and he is also an author with a new book coming out within the next year. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on that notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. We also ask that you post a link of today's show on all your social media to help spread the word. Now, let's say hello to Mike Croissant. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today?
I'm good, John. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Mike, can you very briefly give our audience your background and tell us how you became a CIA officer?
Sure. I grew up in a small town in rural Illinois and wanted to serve my country. I went to school, got a couple of graduate degrees, learned a couple of languages that were of interest to the agency. And when I was wrapping up my second master's degree, they very fortuitously came recruiting. I scored an interview and landed an offer to start working. And several months later, after an extensive background check and security screening, I went to work in December 1999.
Nice. How difficult is it to train for and actually become a member of the CIA?
It is challenging. You have to, in my case, I was an analyst. So what do analysts do? They write mostly. So I had to be trained in a new way of writing because our customers, the policymaker, have very little time, and you have to become a master of the English language. You have to be able to communicate complex ideas in a very short amount of time and space, so the policymaker can quickly digest what they need to know. You have many opportunities to train throughout your career, be it as an analyst as I was, or for the other, occupations. You may be trained in the use of weapons. You trained in the use of, vehicles as weapons. Training in surveillance detection. I think probably in my case, I received enough instruction to have accounted for another master's degree. They really enforce the need to continuously learn throughout your career.
Now, do analysts analyze areas, military operations, individual adversaries? Is it everything? Are you analysts compartmentalized in your areas of expertise? How does that work?
There are a couple of different kinds of analysts. I was a political analyst, which is self-explanatory. You analyze the political system of a given country, its laws, its the way it works, the way the country works, security threats, etc. There are leadership analysts who have to become experts on particular members of other governments, what makes them tick. There are military analysts who look at the military capabilities of a foreign country. There are open source analysts, and there's all different kinds of analysts, but they are broken up regionally for the most part. I worked for many years for the organization that looks at Russia and the former Soviet republics. There are obviously ones that cover the Middle East and all the other parts of the world.
Do you speak Russian?
I do not speak Russian. I learned a couple of languages over time.
Right.
A couple that were spoken in some of the former republics of Russia, but
Gotcha.
I never developed any kind of capability in Russian.
What was it like working in the CIA when 9/11 occurred?
It was a terrible day, obviously. My experience was a bit different than most, I think. I was a political analyst for one of the countries bordering on Afghanistan, and it was more than just a normal day for us because on September 9th, 2001, the leader of the Northern Alliance, the main resistance group to the Taliban in Afghanistan, was assassinated by Al Qaeda journalists, people posing as journalists. And we knew that his assassination would have implications for our countries. So September 10th, September 11th in the morning, we knew that something was going on that would impact our countries. So the morning of September 11th, we had our normal morning meeting that went pretty long. By the time that ended, we left the conference room and returned to our office. And I noticed that TVs were on sort of back in the distance. And that's rare because you try to respect everyone's ability to get work done by not having loud music or television on. The television was on loudly, so I walked over there, and that's when I saw. And by the time our morning meeting ended, both towers had already been hit at the World Trade Center. So it was obvious that a horrific attack was underway.
Now, did most of you guys in the office know it was an attack when the first plane hit, or did it take until the second plane hit when you realized, all right, this is a full-blown attack?
I think the latter. Most people that didn't see the plane actually go into the building, most people thought it was a small plane, a commuter plane, perhaps. As I said, I tuned in when both towers had already been struck, so it was obvious that an act of war had been committed. I returned to my desk and tuned into the TV, called my mother, called my wife, who was pregnant with our first child, to make sure that they were tuning in, and just tried to wrap my head around what was going on. The Pentagon was struck pretty shortly after that, and at that point, I evacuated the building.
I'll tell you a funny story. On 9/11 in the morning, I'm watching the news, and they're showing the first plane hit the tower, and I'm in an apartment building on the third floor, and suddenly I smell smoke. So I go in the hallway and I see smoke billowing down our hallway, and I'm in the Midwest. I'm not in New York at the time, I should say. So fire alarms are going off, and we're all evacuating the apartment building. Well, it turns out one floor beneath us, somebody had started a kitchen fire, and that smoke had billowed up of several floors, and so it was just a strange coincidence. But it was a very, very strange coincidence.
It was an incredible day. I mean, the thing that stands out to me most about that day, other than just the terror and the fear, is just how it was such a perfect day. The sky was blue. There was not a cloud in the sky. And I walked out of the building that day as I was evacuating, and CIA headquarters is right on the flight path for planes landing at Washington National Airport. So there's every minute or two, there's a plane passing overhead most of the time. I walked out of that building and no planes in the sky, and the sky was blue, the temperature was perfect, and you could hear a pin drop. That really sticks with me.
So almost everything the public knows about the CIA is based on what they've seen in the movies or on television. How accurate or inaccurate are the depictions that people see of the CIA in the movies?
John, I make it a habit not to really watch most movies about the CIA, because it's just, Hollywood would have the viewer believe that we're all a James Bond or a Jason Bourne or a Jack Ryan, and it's really not that way at all. And I understand they need to make movies exciting, and if a movie were to be made that captured what we do accurately, I don't think many people would want to see it, because it would be too boring. But of all the movies I've seen, I would say that Zero Dark 30 comes closest to capturing what a person like myself did, even though they depict a lot of things that didn't actually happen. It comes pretty close to what it was like.
Now, it took a while for the government to finally track down and kill Osama bin Laden. What were your thoughts when President Obama came on television and announced that bin Laden had been killed?
I was overseas, living and working overseas when it happened. So the operation was compartmented even within the CIA. So I learned about it when everybody else learned about it. it was being announced just as I was reporting to work in the morning, and we tuned in and watched the president give a speech, and I was deeply proud. I've had my issues with what every American president has done with the war in Afghanistan since 9/11, but that day I was deeply proud of President Obama and of all the people who made that operation happen. It wasn't immediately clear to us, as I said, because it was compartmented, what the CIA's role was in that operation. But as the information came out, it was without doubt the CIA's finest hour, and I have never been prouder of what I did. Even though I had nothing to do with it, I've never been prouder. I was never prouder than at that moment to be a CIA employee.
Absolutely. How has the internet affected the CIA's ability to do its work? Has it complicated it? Has it made it easier?
The internet is a two-edged sword for sure. It has made secure communication certainly more accessible, made it easier to communicate. It's made it easier to get quick notice of things that are happening around the world. Like in the case of Ukraine currently, it's almost like we're watching the war happen in real time. On the other hand, it's opened us up to the threat of cyber warfare. It's made our enemies. It's given our enemies quicker access to be able to poke at us and conduct covert action against us. So definitely pluses and minuses to the internet.
When people work at the CIA, are they allowed to tell their friends and family that they work for the agency or no?
It depends. Not everyone who works at the agency is undercover. It is possible to be hired and work overtly as a CIA officer. I mean, you're encouraged to not advertise it. You wouldn't want to, splash it all over social media where you work or fly a CIA flag in front of your house. You're supposed to have some discretion, but you can share your affiliation with family in most cases. For those who are undercover, you have to use a lot of discretion on who you tell in order to protect yourself as well as your family and those you may be working with.
Now, when you see what's happening in Ukraine and Russia now, do you believe there's a way to bring this war to a quick conclusion?
We're talking, I think this is the 49th day of the war. We're talking on the 49th day of the war. I think we're seeing two types of warfare colliding. In many ways, the Russians are fighting a 20th century war characterized by, brute force, indiscriminate destruction of property, and undeniably the commission of war crimes against civilians. And on the other hand, you're seeing the Ukrainians fight a more 21st century war with the use of modern technology like drones and savvy use of social media and these magnificent shoulder-fired weapons that we've been providing them.
Did you see that one video on I think it was on YouTube where those Chechen soldiers working with the Ukrainians were firing stingers at these planes that were coming by to attack them, and they shot I believe 6 stingers in a row. Every time he shot one off that missed because the Russian planes kept firing flares to distract them. Every time he shot a stinger, his partner immediately handed him another stinger and he would squeeze that one off. And finally, on shot number 6, the missile knocked the plane out and the pilot ejected immediately. I've never seen that many stingers fired in such rapid succession.
I have not seen that particular footage.
Amazing.
To answer your question, the only way I see this coming to a quick conclusion is either the collapse of Ukrainian resistance and political will, which I see no signs of happening, or the ouster of Vladimir Putin. Barring either of these unlikely outcomes, I think the war is going to continue.
Now, you also worked as a targeting officer at the Counterterrorism Mission Center of the CIA. Can you tell us how challenging is a job like that?
It's incredibly challenging. The targeting officer has two primary roles. One is to identify the people, relationships, organizations that have access to the information that we need, the CIA needs to do its job properly. Secondly, to find opportunities to disrupt terrorist attacks, illegal weapons trade, drug networks, cyber threats, etc. And it's incredibly challenging. But on the other hand, it's also very fulfilling. I can honestly say that in my time working with some of the best, brightest people in the whole world, saved lives through counterterrorism targeting, and I take great pride in that, and found it to be by far the most fulfilling work that I did. Over the course of my career, I worked against every major foreign terrorist enterprise in the world: Al Qaeda, Taliban, ISIS, and their affiliates. So it was a great life, a great career, and I'm very proud of what I did.
So I'm assuming the agency is always hiring. Do you have an idea of what sort of people they're looking for? What sort of expertise is in the greatest demand now by the agency?
You're right. They are always looking for new talent. I would say that the main things in greatest demand now are people with foreign language capabilities in things such as Chinese, Russian, Farsi, Arabic, and people with great technical skills. Having said that, though, the CIA has many different types of people doing many different types of work. So if any of the things I just mentioned are not in a viewer's repertoire, don't be deterred. Myself, I was hired by a person whose academic background was marine biology. Who, obviously the CIA doesn't do marine biology, but we hired one, and she was an incredible officer. So all of the careers that one might seek are on the CIA's website, and you can find more information there, cia.gov.
Now, do you have any great stories you can tell us that won't get you in trouble?
Probably not. I think that anything that I could tell that might be considered a great story would probably necessitate me divulging classified information, which obviously I can't do. I could tell you perhaps an inspiring story.
All right.
I was serving in a war zone overseas, and while I was there, a very senior Al Qaeda personality was removed from the battlefield. My boss, the chief of station, went back to the United States on R&R and came back, held an all hands meeting, and told us that no one really at home knew anything about this person being removed from the battlefield. Even people at the CIA weren't aware. And he saw probably a bunch of forlorn, looks on our faces. And he says, don't worry about it. I had the same reaction at first too. But when I thought about it, and I'm paraphrasing him, when I thought about it, it's actually a great compliment to us, because the American people are not being kept awake at night worrying about being affected by a terrorist attack. And having lived through 9/11 and the aftermath, there was a lot of threats in the days and weeks after, and a lot of people, including myself, wondering if I would live to see the next day. And the fact that over the course of more than a decade, we had transformed from that kind of environment into an environment in which people no longer really even notice, when it's no longer front page news that a senior Al Qaeda leader is removed from the battlefield, that it's a great compliment that people are sort of blissfully unaware. And that goes to show that a lot of people are working in the military, intelligence services, and the diplomatic ranks to keep everybody safe. And if that's not on the front page, that's totally fine. And that was a really inspiring moment for me, and really impacted the way I approached my work for the rest of my career.
In your opinion, what do you think the greatest threat to America is now?
I think the greatest threat to America now is attempts by foreign governments to influence public opinion in our political process. We live in such a divided time in which people are so quick to anger, so quick to believe the worst about our fellow citizens, so quick to be influenced by things you may read on social media. And the pervasive nature of social media makes it very easy for foreign governments to poke at us and stir up the pot.
What do you think the greatest threat to America will be in 5 years?
In 5 years, I would repeat my same answer
All
on
right.
that.
All right. Now, if someone wanted to pursue a career with the CIA, what advice could you give them?
I would say go for it. It's a great life. It's a great career. And actually, it's more than a career. It's a calling. It's a life that you could not even imagine. It becomes your entire identity. You work in the shadows, protecting people who will never know what you're doing for them. Your successes will sometimes be revealed to the public. Most times they will not. But your slightest failure will sometimes be exposed and magnified. That's just part of the deal. If you're seeking fame and fortune, it's not something to pursue. But if you want to work for a greater purpose, if you want to protect others, if you relish a challenge, if you want to live within a code of honor and work with some of the best people in the world, go for it. A world of adventure awaits.
Do you think the era of human spies being needed to spy on other people is soon going to be replaced by incredible new software and hardware that will be able to watch and spy on everyone, everywhere, at all times?
I don't think the need for human intelligence is going anywhere anytime soon. The savviest of adversaries knows to take extreme precautions when it comes to using electronic devices or things that could be monitored. But you can never cut humans out of the chain of decision making in any way. So there will always be a way to find the information we need as a country to warn policymakers of threats or upcoming trends that need to be addressed.
Sure, sure. Well, before we wrap things up, is there anything you would like to promote?
I appreciate that. I would like to put in a plug for an upcoming book, tentatively titled Bombing Hitler's Hometown. I've been working on it for more than a decade now. It's essentially the story of the last mass bomber raid of World War II in Europe. It's a mission to strike a rail yard in Linz, Austria, which is the town that Hitler considered his home. 14 American bombers were shot down. 25 Americans lost their lives. My uncle was a participant in the mission. I was able to identify and interview about 50 survivors and spoke to them over the course of several years and gained access to a lot of information that had not come to light before, like diaries and letters and mission records. So I've woven it into a story, a narrative about this mission and the effect that it had on the men. One of the survivors was shot down, captured by the Soviets, who at that time were our ally, and was tortured because they suspected he was a German spy. Another crew was shot down and landed in a concentration camp in Austria. They were tortured. So it's a remarkable story, and I'm very fortunate to have been given so much, that the veterans shared so much with me Many of them
Nice.
had never told the story before.
Nice.
So I will be looking for a publisher for that in the coming year. And until then, you can learn more on mikecroissant.com or follow me on Twitter at croissant_Mike.
Nice, nice. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the John Ark Show. I want to wish you continued success with everything, including your new book. And you're always welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I want to thank our viewers for watching and tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews coming up and more breaking news stories. So we encourage you to subscribe to our channel for free and click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new story. See you soon.